Hello and welcome to the Brothers Two of Them podcast. Today we are going to be talking about this right here, Holy Grit, written by Paul George and approved by Father Mike Schmitz. This book is a saintly guide to becoming a man of virtue, and we are going to analyze it one chapter at a time over the next few months or so, and just kind of pick apart some things and see what's good in here, what's bad, what's good arguments, what's bad arguments. And basically the book is an analysis of a bunch of different saints in the Catholic faith and how their examples could be used to shape our own selves so that we can be men of virtue. That's the idea anyway. But we're going to talk about some stuff in the book. So my name is Sam, and this is, of course, my lovely brother, Will, who is going to talk about himself for a second.
Aloha, everybody. My name is Will, and I'm going to talk about myself for a second. Uh, you can find me at linktree/Will Stevenson. I am a podcaster, iron worker, philosopher, crypto enthusiast, marksmanship instructor. I do a whole bunch of things, but one of the things that I like to do a lot is talk with Sam about some cool stuff, thoughts and feelings, whether it's on religion, whether it's on male-female positive interdynamics, for like relationships and things, or just shooting the shit about some cool stuff. So that's what we're doing here. That's what we're going to get into today. Happy to be here.
Excellent. We got a great comment out of the gate from Agent J. Few questions. First, what is virtue? Second, why should anyone care to become a man of virtue? Those are great questions, Agent J. I would take a stab at answering them and say, first, what is virtue? Well, it seems to me that virtue is, well, probably has some definition by Google, but it seems to me that virtue is basically you're going to be choosing to do something that may not be the best thing for yourself, or it may not be the most expeditious thing or the easiest thing to do, but it's going to be something that is ultimately more likely to bring out a better good for the world or other people. That seems to me like what virtue is. Uh, Maybe Will's got a different take, but secondly, why should anyone care to become a man of virtue? Well, the only reason I think you should care, if you choose to care, is if you want the world to ultimately be smoother machine operating, right? So we have air conditioning, we have all kinds of wonderful things that we can use in this world, and if we were all still fighting each other over barbaric things, and we couldn't come to agreements, and we couldn't agree to like do things for the general better good and sacrifice some things ourselves, we probably wouldn't have the civilization that we have today. That's kind of my take on it, why it'd be generally important to be a man of virtue. But Will, what do you think?
I would say pretty much the same thing. Like, what is a man of virtue is just a man that other men aspire to be like, but specifically in regards to like ethics and morality. And can you bring the question back up again?
Yes, I
That was
can.
the second one, was how to be a man of virtue. Oh, excellent. Or why should anyone care to become a man of virtue? Um, ooh, that's a good like marketing and sales question. I love sales. Why should someone want to be a man of virtue? It is more beneficial for you to be a man of virtue insofar as other people will want to be around you and want to interact with you. If you're not a man of virtue, and we can define virtue in a variety of ways, but if you're not a man of virtue, then very likely you're not going to get along with other folks as well. Most like most of the principles of virtue, like, or most of the ways that one can define virtue boils down to like principles of ethics and morality, which ultimately lead a society to interact positively with each other, like Sam was saying earlier, which allows us to have nice things like air conditioning and taxes and like cool headsets upon which we can podcast, and the internet and all sorts of crazy things. So like if everyone was busy guarding themselves against the malice or like hedonism or selfishness of other people, then we wouldn't have time to make really cool things and to do really cool stuff, because we would be focused more on survival and like prioritization of ourselves and stuff. So being a virtuous man is important if you want to live in a society and get along with other people.
That is an excellent answer.
Thank you. Yours
I
was
like that.
fantastic as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it here. So Chapter 1 is about Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph is the supposed man who was Jesus's father on
Mm,
earth, right? And Mary's husband. This is the Joseph we are referring to,
mhm,
right? And this first chapter is basically talking about how Joseph did a very difficult thing by remaining in his relationship with Mary. And ultimately that brought about the Holy Family and all of that stuff. And that was a super good thing. Now, some of the arguments that are made here for why you should do these kinds of things are what we're going to kind of end up talking about. But that was generally what the first chapter was about. So getting into the details here. So the first thing they want to bring up is that they just blanketly state that Joseph is one of the greatest figures in Christianity. So it's like, okay, well, there was no backup information given to that. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but cite your sources would be kind of good to know, like why.
well,
Um,
it's also like an
and the,
opinion, you know?
right,
It's like the whole thing is just like a, "Hey, I think that the color red is the best color."
right. Sure, you sure can. And they follow that up immediately by saying, we know little about him. There's pretty
Mhm,
much nothing there's not much we do know about him. But what we do know about him is some important stuff. So that's what they say. So Joseph was a craftsman. He was a good old, if Bungalows for Bachelors was around at the time, I'm sure he would have been part of the group because he knew how to work with his hands. He was a
yep.
carpenter, and supposedly that also meant that he was a craftsman. The word translations were something like that. But he could work with wood and stone, supposedly. And this guy was just a good, hardworking dude. And supposedly, it says that some historians date Joseph's birth around 90 BC and his death around 18 AD or AD 18, whatever you do. Right. So, that the birth of Christ being the like definitive part of that age, it kind of makes you think, was Joseph, was he like in his 80s when he had was he when he was a father? Like, huh, interesting, right? So if that's correct, that's the first
I
thing that
think
made me wonder.
it also says later on, so in this first chapter, yeah, I mean, like, nobody knows when Joseph was born, but it's interesting that, like, they date it in the book to saying, like, he was 90 years older than Jesus, and then in a couple like sentences later, they talk about, yeah, Joseph was like 2 or 3 years older than Mary or something along those lines, and it's just like, it's like words written in a book, right? And like I don't know how accurate the Bible is supposed to be, or like how literally it's supposed to be taken, or like if they had different mechanisms of like measuring time back then or something along those lines. So it's like I'm just gonna chalk this one up to is like it's funny to misinterpret nowadays, and it's just kind of it provides a nice little chuckle. So
Right.
I shouldn't have cut you off.
No,
You had
you're
a thought
good. I was gonna follow that up because just like you said, shortly after that, it basically said that Mary was a teenager and Joseph was older.
there. Yeah,
And so, it's kind of funny that they got that part right at least.
I guess the editor didn't catch that one, but I mean,
Right.
it's a book.
But it really seems like Joseph is coming across as a Delta male. They're making some assumptions about him now, about
Yes.
how, he wanted to just kind of do his thing and work. And eventually he just found himself wanting to have a family when he was old. Right. So the part where things get complicated for Mr. Joseph is where his plans changed. Right. So he discovered that his fiancee was pregnant and the child she carried was not his.
Hmm.
So that's going to set the frame for a lot of the arguments. Not a lot of there's pretty much one argument that they're making here. It's going to set the frame for how they describe in this particular book, like how they make that, like make the how do you make something good out of a bad situation, right? So if you are just a dude doing your thing, working hard, your fiance gets pregnant, it's not yours. Let's remember that scenario. Like that's the information that we can assume and that we know, right? Joseph doesn't know like much more than that, presuming that like Mary may have told him, but like, okay, who knows what she was saying, and he maybe didn't believe her or whatever. But like, that's the information he knows is for sure,
Hmm.
right? So that's going to kind of paint the context. And supposedly he had decided to divorce her, and do it quietly because he didn't want to expose her to shame and some things like that because he's a good dude, right?
Yeah.
So he's confronted with a situation where, oh, like someone basically broke the rules. I am like, well, now I don't want to be with this woman. So he's in every right to decide that that's something he, you know, doesn't want to do. So he doesn't want to do it. So he decides to divorce her. So the issue with some of the arguments made in here are that um, they are they continuously paint like, let me see if I can find an example. So the guy continuously relates himself, like the author is relating stories of himself having issues, being shameful of his issues, but being willing to like do the right thing regardless because of his own shame for his own mistakes, like his actual mistakes, the author's mistakes. And he immediately correlates that shame to, oh, even though Joseph felt shame for his situation, he should have done the right thing anyway and stayed with Mary, right? So the problem with the argument that I had was that he was directly correlating something that was not a direct correlation. So he was making arguments about, oh, okay, like the author's got problems, therefore I should try to fix these problems and do the right thing. And then he immediately says, oh, Joseph had problems, but he should try to do the right thing and fix those problems. So it's like, well, Joseph, it wasn't Joseph's fault. Like when this situation happened, like not necessarily that it wasn't his fault, but like he was presented with a situation that was out of his control. That's like,
Hmm.
oh, now this bad thing is happening to me. It's not like Joseph was an asshole and beat his wife, and so she went off and like cheated on him or something. Like that's not the situation that is being presented here. And so I just wanted to basically say that a lot of these points came across. I don't know if I'm making a clear point here, but what do you think, Will, about that?
That hang on, I'm unmuted.
Is
Okay,
my
I'm
argument
muted.
being coming across clearly? Across clearly.
That Joseph. So you're saying that the author has problems in his life that he's responsible for, and
Hmm.
Joseph had problems in his life that he was not necessarily the starter of. He just finds himself in a scenario that is not advantageous to him and stuff like that.
Correct. Right.
Yeah, so it's a
So
bad comparison.
right. So it's a bad comparison, and that was the main comparison that this author kept applying in
Yeah.
2 or 3 spots, saying that you should basically, you ought to just do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, what even is the right thing, like we can that's a whole rabbit hole of like what is right, what is correct, super subjective. Do you mind if I go through the comments here, because I think that there's something that Jay's got.
Absolutely. Yep.
So Jay talks about, can virtue be subjective? Because if being a virtuous man leads to a mutually beneficial society, it seems to me that there are people who present as virtuous but are a net negative to society. Uh, yeah, he's absolutely right, and I don't think that, aloha Tam. I don't think that Joseph was a net negative, and I don't think this author is necessarily a net negative. But yes, there's definitely people who like are sheep or wolves in sheep's clothing, right? So there's lots of that. Shoot, that doesn't really apply to this question. Your question was, uh, shoot, I'm running a blank here. Your question was, is the dude's scenario comparable to Joseph's? And I guess it's comparable partially, but I think that, yeah, the author is making unfair comparisons. But I mean, like, that's just like my opinion, man. Like, this author is more than able to, and hell, he wrote a whole book and printed it out. Right. So who am I to say? Who am I to judge? But like, he he is comparing himself to Joseph when his problems are his own, like his own issue, his own authority, his own accountability, his own responsibility. Whereas Joseph's, it was like, oh snap, this thing happened to me and now I have to deal with it. Right. Kind of like circumstance versus something that one brings it about. The author presumes that Mary's mistake is the responsibility of Joseph's to fix. Yeah. So um there's something to be said about that. Like everything that happens to you in your life, like I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink, who talks about ultimate or not ultimate, but what's
Extreme
the
ownership.
extreme ownership, yes. Where it's basically like you're responsible for everything that happens in your life because you're the only one that can change it, and that's how you stop yourself from being a slave to like everyone else's things going on, right? Or just like being a slave to circumstance, right? If you don't take care of it, who's going to? So I believe that, yeah, it's Joseph's responsibility in that respect, but it's just like it's the same thing as like, oh, I get in a car wreck versus I caused a car wreck, you know. So there's a like both the author and Joseph got in a car wreck. It's just one's the author's fault and the other one is Joseph's fault. So I guess that's my very roundabout way of agreeing with you and your analysis of the synopsis. So like we can judge the author all day on whether he's a good author or if he's any good at making analogies and comparisons and things. But
Right. So I wanted to bring up this other thing you threw in here that was he's trying to paint the like using the rational thinking in a bad light, right? He's trying to basically say that like if you don't want more bad things to happen to you in a circumstance, then like how dare you try to change your environment to avoid future bad things from happening, right? And
yeah.
so he's saying justification is a slippery slope because justice without love, mercy, understanding, and wisdom can steer us off the road. You know, I'm right, you're wrong, you deserve what's coming to you. So like that's very emotional language.
Yes, it is. I was hoping you were going to get to this. Bro, this author, so like for those of you who have not read the book Holy Grit by Paul George, for those of you who have not read the book, it is there's a difference between someone who presents information in a factual manner versus someone who presents information in an emotional manner. And this author is making a whole bunch of he's speaking in a whole bunch of emotional language, at least in the first chapter of this book. So that's probably something that me and Sam are gonna keep bringing up over and over again. Is this dude just keeps talking about like like how it feels good to do things, how it's preferable to like it's just a whole bunch of like feelings talk and stuff of that nature. So justice doesn't
Yes.
need love, emotion, or understanding because justice is blind. And that's why the statue, like the statue of Lady Justice holding the sword and holding the scale, like she has a blindfold on, is because justice is blind. Now, justice isn't necessary. Like, man, yeah, justice doesn't have emotion. That's it. You can't put it better than that. Justice does not have emotion. We can
Right.
have we can be influenced by emotion in how we choose to respond to something that is determined to be just or unjust. But yeah, like tying in emotional whatever like opinions and things into justice is not taking true justice like at what it's supposed to be meant for.
Right.
Aloha, Paul. Aloha, Herc.
Welcome, Paul. Welcome, Herc.
Look at that. We got some of the fam in the chat. Excellent.
I
It's good to
love it.
see you guys.
Here's
Feel
another
free to hop in and share
here's
your
another
thoughts and
dose
ideas.
for you, Will.
Yes.
Uh, he's talking about Joseph needed help with his decision, and he's referencing God, and God is can be many things. We're not on here to necessarily talk about God or not, but basically the language he's using in here is that God brings light to our darkness and clears the fog when we can't see clearly. And it's like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? Like
So
to not see clearly, being blinded by emotion, because that language is pretty emotional. I don't know what you mean there.
yeah, I think that this dude he's probably confusing some things. So the piece that he's referring to, I'm gonna give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here when I interpret this. Is kind of like when he says that like God brings clarity or God brings peace or God brings all this stuff. Like he's essentially saying like I get a warm fuzzy feeling when I think about there's a bigger meaning, there's a better person in charge. Like this all has purpose, this all has relevance, all of that. That's sort of my interpretation. Is like there's a sense of peace that's brought about when you think like, oh, I'm not totally in charge, there is some bigger plan there's some information that I don't know about, and something good's going to happen at the end of it all, as long as I do X, Y, and Z, right? And I think that that's kind of from a from like a masculine perspective. I would like he's more than welcome to take that approach to life, and I wish him the best. I just think personally that it's a little bit more you have a little bit more control over your own destiny when you don't prescribe like there being a solution to everything, or a fix to everything. And it's like, if I do this, that, and the other thing, like, no sweat, because at the end of the day, the big guys got it, right? I'm a big fan of the no one's coming to save you, no one's coming to fix anything. It's all up to you. So sort it out. That's like my own personal. What are your thoughts on this passage that you read?
Well, pretty much what you said, and it I really wanted to bring up the other one because, like, man, there's just so many of these, like, emotional language ploys in here,
Yeah,
and I'll bring
and
up this one too.
that's part of like the
Go ahead.
marketing. Sorry, go ahead. I was
Yeah,
gonna
it's
go down a spiel on that's all sales. Like, emotional language is sales. It's when you're trying to convince someone of something and you want them to be on your team. It's much easier to do it using like emotional language than it is to do like rational language, or like
right,
logic and reason and things.
right, so allow me to sell you. Here we
Okay,
go.
I'm I'm
The
ready.
course of Joseph's life's changed. I wonder if I'm gonna get in trouble for reading this out loud on YouTube, but,
I
hopefully
don't
not.
think so. Maybe.
The
I
course
guess
of
we'll see.
Joseph's life changed the day he said yes to God's plan. It wasn't the route he had chosen, but he would come to see that God's plan was much better than his own. Grit by itself would have left him justified, but probably divorced and alone. His holy grit, achieved through God's grace, gave him an amazing wife and son to love and care for. Imagine missing out on the joy of the Holy Family,
What
right?
page is
So
this?
this is page 5 at the top.
Yep, I have that fucking I got like notes right there myself on that one. I kind of want to
Yeah.
break this down into a bunch of little things, because it's like that was a lot of there was a lot of like, I wanted to stop you in the middle of you talking about that and be like,
Mhm,
this is a thing that I think is incorrect. This is a thing I think is incorrect. This is,
mhm.
you know, yada 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 yada. Um the course of Joseph's life changed the day he said yes to God's plan. Yeah, it did. He said, "My plan's no longer the thing that I'm doing. I'm doing someone else's plan." Right? It's fine to live your life doing someone else's plan. Go for it. If that's what you want, then by all means. It's not something that I'm necessarily interested in as a person. I think that I have some pretty good plans, and when my plans are proven to be bad, then I'll adapt and move over for that. It wasn't the route he'd chosen, but he'd come to see that God's plan was much better than his own. So, like, what's the measurement that we use to determine, like, oh, God's plan is better than mine, right? That's something
Mhm.
that people need to consider, right? And like there's no direct communication. There is no like solid back and forth between people and God. It's all in our heads. It's all in our hearts. It's all like in the like, it's not like you look at a billboard and God writes on the billboard and he's like, "Hey, hashtag written by God. This is what you need to do. Yada yada yada. This is a good plan. This is a good stuff." It's all just like, it's a whole bunch of interpretation, right? And people can misinterpret things. People can do, this, that, or the other thing. We're all humans. We're all fallible, right? So I'm hesitant to agree that like it's objectively better. Right. Now, I will say that the world definitely benefited as a result of Joseph's decision. Right. So, like in hindsight, we can say, yeah, it was better. But like Joseph at the time, he was essentially just like, oh, what, man, this sucks. Well, I guess I'll figure it out and move forward and stuff like that. Grit by itself would have left him justified, but probably divorced and alone. Yeah, for sure. If he botched his marriage with Mary, there's no way he'd ever find another girl again, and that he would just live his life as a wrinkly old man, and he would die alone in a cemetery all by himself, and everyone would forget he existed. I hate that. I hate this. I'm
It's
gonna
the
get
lonely
emotional.
old man fear.
It's the lonely old man thing, right? Like, if you mess up your one marriage, you're gonna be a lonely old man, and everyone's gonna hate you. It's like there's no like, it's like the opposite of happily ever after. We all know that happily ever after doesn't exist, because happily ever after is like, oh, and everything was great in time infinitum, and no one needed it to do work anymore, and the world was all flowers and sunshine and milk and honey, and it was all wonderful and glorious. And it's like, no, like, man. So the lonely old man, the lonely old man argument, like it is this you were talking pre-show about like I wanted to get your opinion on something, and so I'm not going to say it now while we were going over show notes. I'm guessing that this was it. The lonely old
Not
man, or
quite.
maybe
I'm saving it for later. There's a better one.
oh, all right. Well, holy smokes. We're having some comments by the way. So while I'm going off on my monologues here, I would like you to take a look at the comments, and then I'll address the comments in a minute. His holy grit, achieved through God's grace, gave him an amazing wife and son to love and care for. Imagine missing out on the joy of the Holy Family. So, like, I can agree to that objectively. That like his decision did give him some pretty cool opportunities, and it benefited the world. So it's like it worked out. Good stuff, right? But just the stuff that leads up to that point, right, turns me off of his message. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had. All right, so
Right.
let's go over some comments here if you don't mind.
Of
All
course.
right, yours pick one. You're such a throw. It's the one that where did we start? Okay, the Herc. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but the Lord's purpose prevails. What this means is that your life is one of certain preset paths. Is that your life is one of certain preset paths. Sure. Like I will not like you can't you cannot argue that. Like there are very likely to be many preset plans, and we are all like walking down the the paths that have already been like, everyone already knows what's gonna, or not everyone. God already knows what's gonna happen. And so like there is something that I want to add on to this thought, and that's that like God's greatest gift to man was free will. And so, even though God knows everything, He's given us the opportunity to choose whether we follow the directed path or whether we follow our own path. And He already knows which choice we're going to make, but He won't interfere because He respects our ability to make our own choices, whether they're good choices or bad choices. That's one of the ultimate like best things about religion is that like the point where God's greatest gift to man is free will, like that he would like us to follow his purpose and he would like us to follow his path, but ultimately the decision is ours. We're not forced to. And because like if you're forced to do something, then it's not like it doesn't mean anything versus when you choose to do something. So I am very much in agreement about that. So good comment, Mr. Herc. What is the next, Sam? You make
Thanks for
choices
your follow-up.
which switches the tracks, but the train is still heading to one of the certain set destinations. Yeah, same thought process there. I like that. Agent J, if I were to extend Joseph some grace because God is the archetype for perfection, then Joseph consulting with God would theoretically allow him to find a solution to the problem. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Then Herc, think of it as a set of interconnected traffic lights. All the different lights are set at a specific time interval so that all traffic flows smoothly. If you press a button and it switches your light to green faster, all the other lights, timing programs, and paths need to change. I'm not sure I quite understand this analogy in totality, but I'm getting the general gist of it. I think I might be missing some of the like specific points of understanding. What are your thoughts on this one, Sam?
He's coming at it from like a traffic engineer point of view, right? So if you're gonna drive down a road,
I'm
all of the
glad you're an
lights should be
engineer.
timed so
Yeah.
that your, like car starts this speed, accelerates, yada yada yada. By the time they approach this light, this whole line of traffic can move down the road at once without having to stop. Like that's an
Hmm.
ideal scenario, right? So what he's basically saying is if you affect the timing of one light at the beginning, you need to change all the other ones for this, line to move through.
Mm,
Seemed like he
that's
was
good.
just following up on the same point of
Yeah, yeah.
things being connected. Mr. Paul says happily ever after is usually a lazy path void of effort. That's
Yes.
correct.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, you're 100% correct, man. There's three choices with anything you do in life. You can choose hard positive, you can choose hard negative, or you can choose I'm not going to make a choice, which is what most people do most of the time. Most people choose not to make a choice with like regarding everything that we make decisions about. The easiest path is the path of like not making a hard decision. So I like that. Paul, you have two choices in life: comfort of constantly running. And I'm guessing did he write another one underneath that?
I think maybe
Comfort
comfort
or
or
always
constant
running?
running. Yeah,
Yeah,
comfort
he might
or
have meant or.
constantly running.
Ah, okay. Yep, yep. Comfort can be a season, but sad to see capable people making a life out of it while young. Yeah, I am a big fan of you should not chase comfort. I think that comfort should be reserved for like a special amount of time in the day, but it should not be the majority of the things that you go after. If you're chasing comfort, then like you're probably not going to be as I'll make the comparison of like the warring parts of the world versus the comfort seeking parts of the world. Like take Hawaii, the land of like everything's great and everything's happy and like we're all like, la di da di da and life is good, life is great. We're just gonna eat some coconuts and pineapples and pigs and have a good time and surf and stuff. And then America comes along and it's like, hey, we're capable of war. We like your pineapples. You're part of us now. And the Hawaiians they're just like, well, shit, because we're not prepared for war because we're a bunch of gardeners in a war zone. Like we're not able to like resist the United States coming in and saying, "Hey, you're a part of us now," right? Like places that or places and people that focus on comfort and like and peace rather than like war and fighting and dominance, they generally tend to get overrun by other places that focus on war and dominance and things of that nature. So it's like like a survival perspective, you could see it. You could think of it as like the species that are unable to run or unable to fight are usually the ones that get eaten up and like consumed. So over long enough period of time. So can't have one foot in heaven and one foot in hell. Paul, I choose peace. When you run for others. There's a reason that peace surpasses all understanding is a fruit of the spirit. You can't run and have peace. That is interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
That seems legitimate. That kind of like that's a parallel to it's like you have confrontation to avoid conflict, right? It's the same idea.
Hmm.
You can't be passive. If you want to solve a problem and like actually fix the problem, you have to confront it, right? You don't run away from it.
Yeah.
And so if you want to actually fix the thing, if you want to create the peace, you can't be running from it.
If you want to,
So,
ooh, I've got a caveat to add to yours. If you
ooh,
want to
please.
conquer the problem, then you face it head on. If you want to avoid the problem, you can run away, but like after a certain point in time,
Mm,
you might run out of places to run. If you never like pick a stance and like fight somewhere, then like I don't know. I mean, the world's a big place. You could probably run for a long time, but like as a species, as like a collective of people, eventually you might have to sit tight, dig in, and fight back or something like that. Better to be a
right.
warrior in a garden. Am I right? You're absolutely right. That is a classic. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than it is to be a gardener finding themselves in a war. Unless you're like Samwise Gamgee, and then it's like, hey, we wrote a book about how it's good to be a gardener carrying a ring with his buddy up to a volcano to throw it inside. Yeah, so thanks to all the people in the chat. We got Tam Tam, we got Agent J, we got the Herc, we got Zenith, we got Paul Sachs. Let's see, anyone that I am missing? I think that is everyone. So thank you all for watching us live. That means a lot to me. It means a lot to Sam too. I bet.
It does. It
Forward.
does.
This is excellent.
I've got a new juicy piece. I even wrote gold in the side of this my
Oh yeah.
margins here when I was reading this part.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
okay.
going to
We're
go through
going to
the
the next
words
part.
first. Yeah. All right. Some of us eject from the issue. Okay, so let's context here.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
talking about like dealing with your problems. Some of us eject from the issue. Like a fighter pilot going down, we pull the cord and leap from the plane because an engine failed. I'm going to pause here. If your plane is failing and heading towards the ground, I hope you eject. That's all I'm
Bad
going to say.
analogy. He made a bad
Bad
analogy.
analogy. Bad analogy. Abort mission. Again, like emotional language trying to like, how dare you? How dare you eject? What we should do is stay in the plane, correct course, and land. What if your co-pilot is the one like shooting the like components in the plane, and your co-pilot's like tearing the plane apart from the inside? Do you stay in the plane then?
We can what if his analogy and tear it apart all day long. I think it was not a
Yes.
very well made analogy. But let's try and look past the see the forest for the trees or something like that. I
Yeah.
I,
Here's
I don't know how the
here's Will being the wiser older brother again.
oh, this is it's but it's fun though, right? So homeboy made like a terrible analogy. He's like, oh, You shouldn't eject from the plane. You should land that bitch." And it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not a pilot. I would probably eject personally, but like, yeah, I guess this writer, like, sorry, bro, I love you, but you probably need to go to analogy school or something. Um,
Most
anyways,
likely. Let me land the plane here on this one
yeah,
topic,
yeah,
pun intended. It's amazing how some of us can face a crisis at work or a challenge on the field or court. Yet when it comes to personal issues, we would rather hide in an emotional foxhole. A small disagreement with your wife can spiral into an emotional dilemma that you can't get out of fast enough. Pull the cord, get out quickly before I discover that I'm wrong. Okay, let me go back over this before
what
you
a weak
respond.
bitch thing to say.
See, I saw your
Like,
eye roll.
god damn. I like Zenith's analogy. See the airplane through the crash wreckage.
So, like, yeah, so hide in an emotional foxhole. So because I am protecting myself from future bad things happening to me, that's going to be seen as negative because now I'm protecting myself. That's just like it's not about hiding. And then of course, I love this. Again, just the bad analogies thing is a continuous thing, right? A
Yeah.
small disagreement with your wife. I'm sorry, but taking this back to the original point of Joseph's situation, he found out that she was pregnant and it wasn't his. That's the
Yeah.
information he had to work with.
Yeah.
That's not just a small disagreement with your wife. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, bro.
Like, let's draw some parallels. So, like, it's an emotional dilemma that you can't get out of fast enough. Pull the cord, get out quickly before I discover that I'm wrong. Joseph, you probably ain't wrong, bro. Like, sorry. I'm getting emotional now. I shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, this is fun, right? This is fun. I'm trying to find where that quote is about because I think I wrote some
Page 8, bottom left.
page 8 bottom left.
Yeah, so like what did Joseph do, you know?
Ah, yes. I wrote I wrote one word.
What is the word?
Fucking weak.
Oh, weak.
Yeah. It's just like some of us eject from the issue like a fighter pilot going down. We pull the plane, we pull the cord, blah de da. Uh, we would rather hide. Man, this dude is casting all sorts of bad spells. Like he's, I don't know. I'm so like for those of you who haven't been around me, I'm not a big fan of casting bad spells. And like what I mean by that is like there's a difference between saying I'm stupid and I did a stupid thing one time, right? One is I'm defining myself as a thing, and the other one is like I did a thing, but that doesn't like define who I am. You know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
what this dude is doing is like we would rather hide in an emotional foxhole, right? Like I don't like that language.
Would
I think that
you
that's bad. Everything that you consume is some level of hypnosis, whether it's effective or not. Obviously, his hypnosis is not effective on us because like we're having this emotional reaction in response to it. But like if this guy was a good salesman and a good marketer, like he would have like it'd be good to put a positive spin on trying to avoid negative outcomes as opposed to saying like oh well sometimes I'm a weak person, you know. It's like no, don't say that. Don't say sometimes I'm a weak person. like I try and do the best that I can at all times, and there's problems that happen, right? And we like there's better spins to put on things, and this dude's just not a he's not selling it. He's not selling it
would
to
you
me very well.
agree, Will, that that's like a common theme? Like we come from at least 18 years of like Catholic raised background,
Yeah.
right? So we've experienced that. Would you agree
Uh-huh.
that this is a common theme in that in the way that things are preached and the way that things are taught is just like is like oh but we're broken and we make mistakes and like they like that's a frequent thing that's a bad spell like oh
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
bad thing.
You're bad man. Do bad things. Stop. Be bad man. Do be good man. That's how I see
Yes.
a lot of like the. I think that that's a big reason. Like, if there's any preachers watching this, and I doubt that there are, but like that that's something that turns young men off from religion. Like, there's plenty of fantastic and awesome things like that have to do with religion, right? But like putting these negative like these negative spins on a person's existence is going to turn away that type of person from whatever message you're trying to sell them, right? Like if preachers and priests and pastors and rabbis and stuff, they want young men to be in their church and they want young men to be better, they shouldn't start off by saying, "Hey, you're a piece of trash, you dingus," right? Because that's going to turn people away. And that seems to be a common thread, at least in all of the religious like communities that I've been in. Is it all starts off as like, "Hey, you're a piece of trash, you need to do better, you dingus." Like it's not personalized. It's blanket statement, it's industrialized. Like if they're critiquing something specific about me, if they're saying, "Hey, Will, you got a piece of like spinach stuck in your beard," or something like that, then I'll be like, "Oh, that's specific. That's a criticism that I can work with. Like, I'll take the spinach out of my beard and then I'll throw it away." But then when they say, "Hey, Will, you're a bad person, you need to stop being a bad person," it's like, that's not useful. I can't do anything with that, right? That like blanket statement criticism helps no one, in my opinion. It needs to be constructive, it needs to be specific, it needs to be like relatable. Just presuming that people are bad is not a good way to get them on your team. And I've noticed that a lot in religious communities, and it's just like it's an unfortunate commonality that I have seen anyways, at least in my upbringing and things. And it makes me not want to
Excellent.
like interact with them. Even though
Yes.
there's tons of amazing things that comes out of religion and religious communities. I love a whole lot of it. But like they presenting this message turns people away that are probably the type of people that you would want to be in the community, you know. Some just my personal thoughts. What do we got here?
We got some comments we're going to go through here from Paul. The human existence is one of struggle and competition, whether that be internal or external towards others. We make it out of everything, even in our subconscious.
That's correct. You struggle, then you die. We struggle, we
No one's
compete for
coming to save you.
resources. No one's coming to save you. There is no happily ever after. You're going to continue. Hang on, I'm gonna. Oh man, we got a lot of comments to go through.
Oh, yeah,
Jeez
we're
Louise.
going through them.
All right. Oh, I can see the ones you're highlighting. Excellent. Yeah, whether that be internal or external. Yeah, make it out of everything, even our subconscious. Yeah, I like that you put competition in there because we are all competing for everyone in every respect of everything in life. Like we're competing with each other for money. Like we're competing with each other for attention. We're competing with each other for, you know, like
Mate selection.
mate selection, right? The only thing we don't compete with other people for is time, right? And in respect to ourselves, like you can compete for other people's time, but as far as like you're going to have 24 hours in a day that you can choose to do what you want with it, nobody can take that away from you, right? People can imprison you, but you still have the time. Like time can't be stolen. It's just whether you're going to spend it or invest it is the mechanism by which people can like remove your options, I guess, but they can't take the time away. So just some thoughts there. Might
I
still
like this
help to
comment
learn
from
how to
Zenith.
fight. Yeah, thank you, Zenith. I like that. Might still help to learn how to fight with a garden trowel. You're absolutely
I
right.
agree. Oops, my bad. Hold on. Here we go.
Buddha, Mavira, no, you can't. Muda, Bavira, Lao Tzu, you can't run in the world and have peace. That's not how it works. Oh yeah, I think this is going back to the point that we were making that like you can't run forever. You can run as a short term. You can run to find a better place to dig in and fight. You can run to a place where you can train yourself to be a better fighter, and then you have to do the fighting at some point, right? Somebody has to do the fighting. Somebody has to like refresh the tree of liberty with the blood of the enemies or whoever wants to impose their will on you, right? Or something along those lines.
Right.
Paul Sachs, the longer I've been in crypto, I've realized more of the outside world. Positioning is paramount in the majority of all things in life. Yeah, positioning.
Ooh,
Where
that's
you are,
true.
what you're doing, the logistics, like something that you study with Sartain is like it's very important to set up logistics for where you're at in a city if you want to have X, Y, and Z result. Like when you chose your apartment, your positioning was very important to you, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And so like the positioning of like where gas stations are, they're generally close to interstates and high traffic areas. Like you don't see gas stations out in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. Sorry, Zenith. We got to go with our gas. You don't see a Costco in the middle of the plains of Wyoming, right? You don't see. I mean, you might see water fountains in the Saharan desert, but like that's bad analogy. Positioning, location, 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 all that good stuff. Oh man, but yeah, absolutely right.
Interesting
Well said.
comment from the herd here. Why was Jesus poor? Why was Buddha poor? Why was Lao Tzu, Chengzu all poor? Think about that. I've had more money than I know what to do with. Peace is better.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Money is a tool to acquire things and allow you to accomplish goals. I think that mm, perhaps he's making the point that like at a certain after a certain amount of money, the money kind of like takes your attention away from, or there's a potential for the money to take your attention away from the things that you need to do. So if you're a poor person and you're going after like getting your goals accomplished that don't like require tons of amounts of money and things, like then you're probably going to be oh, what's the phrase that I'm looking for here? Do you understand where I'm going with this? I lost the
I
wording.
think so.
But like Jesus was poor because Jesus was focused on his message. He
Mhm.
wasn't focused on making the money, right? So
Right.
he devoted all 24 of his hours to proclamating his message, to spreading the word, to doing the deeds and being a brand ambassador for like Christianity and stuff like that. Jesus didn't spend 13 hours a day. I mean, maybe he did in the beginning, like building shelves and stuff, so that way he could make money, so he could, go and buy the equivalent of billboards and whatever back then.
Well, I was gonna say, so like it's kind of funny that we're talking about this because it makes you wonder. Well, what would have been more effective if he had spent another extra like 5 years like building up his brand and making more money so that he could afford to spend money on a larger message, right?
Mhm.
Would Jesus have done a better job spreading Christianity if he had instead spent 5 years investing and doing more carpentry?
Dude, this kind of reminds me of the Hormozy theorem, where so Alex Hormozy talks about when he wrote $100 million offers, he didn't advertise anything for it. He spent all of his time, like years or something like that, making a like 100% quality product and zero money on marketing, right? And then there's other companies that they make a decent product and then they spend all their money on marketing, or they spend a very significant chunk of their efforts, right? Whether we're going to call it money or time or value or attention or whatever, they spent all of their values, a lot of the values on the marketing, versus the Hormozy, where he spent a lot of the values on the quality substance creation. And so we could, I don't want to say that like Jesus is Hormozy, but like the principle of like Jesus spent all of his time honing his message, right? And letting the quality of the message be the marketing, right? Alex Hormozy never paid for any marketing. People read $100 million offers and then they recommend, like, we're here fucking talking about it right now. We are giving Alex Hormozy free advertising because he created such a good product,
Mhm.
uh, and it's such a good book that like literally everybody's talking about it, and that creates social proof, which is the best version of marketing, is hearing it from other people that you trust and like looking into things. So I wouldn't be
How do we
surprised.
know
Like,
that Hormozy isn't Jesus?
I mean, he could be the new Jesus. I know he's like some version of I think he's Syrian or something like that. I can't remember. I know he
Oh,
said that his
perfect.
his parents or grandparents were Middle Eastern or something. But yeah, Alex Hormozy, a great author, spent a lot of time creating a fucking tip top notch dealio, as opposed to creating a good thing and then just getting the marketing message out. When your thing is so good enough, like so good that other people can't help but like not like it, or they can't help but like it, not they can't help but like it because it's so fucking quality, right? Then you get the best version of marketing, which is like a great product in conjunction with like great words from people that say things. We're going to move on to Jay's comment here, I'm guessing. What are your thoughts on this one while I read it?
Yes, I don't argue that peace is not better. What I'm arguing for is that if you want to find the greatest meaning in life, you can't have both feet planted in heaven. Ah, there's no struggle
Ooh,
in
I
heaven.
like that, Jay. That's fantastic, bro. Good quote. I don't argue that peace is not better. What I'm arguing for is that if you want to find the greatest meaning in life, you can't have both feet planted in heaven. There's no struggle in heaven. That is correct. Oh man, that's good. Because that's like, hey, bro, you got to live here on earth. Like, figure it out. You can't just be like, oh yeah, it'll all be great when I die and go to heaven. It's like, hooray! That's when like it's like I've always got this plan B, right? You got to
Yeah,
you got to
yeah, it's
figure
like
out.
how many people do you know that just like accept whatever life throws at them because they are just so focused on getting to heaven. Like,
Yes.
wow, that's a lot of
Yeah.
people personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And if that's their thing, then that's their thing. It's not gonna be my thing because
That's
I've
true.
got problems to solve. I've got money to make. I've got, the world to make better. Stuff like that. That's my goals and my mission.
Right.
These are some good comments, guys. Wow. Thanks for hopping in the chats with us today.
Yeah.
This is
Heavy duty. I like
fantastic.
it. Zenith
Progress
says
towards
a
personal.
$100 million offer is only 3 hours long on Audible. Now, is that at 2 times speed or 1 time speed?
I think he was
But
saying that that's
easy to get
because
through
we
in
were
the
talking
afternoon.
about this. Zenith and I were talking about this. I don't remember when. I think when we were chatting the next book for book club. By the way, shout out to Zenith, the guy who started the book club on the DGen Roundtable. If you guys are not already a member of the DGen Roundtable, I highly suggest that you go join the DGen Roundtable Telegram chat. It is at bit.ly/degenerate underscore roundtable. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and then I'm going to put it into chat. Doobie doo. While I'm doing that, the cool.
We
Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to hit on one last thing. In the last
Yeah.
part of this chapter, which is the part that I would hope would make you giggle, right? So I think there's at the end of every single one of these chapters, they have what they call the action plan,
Oh,
which
I
most
skipped
people
that.
would
I
typically
didn't read it.
think, yeah, well, you should have because it's all about taking action and doing things differently. Step 1, be open. Ask God for the grace to be honest with yourself about your life. Where are you emotionally and spiritually in your journey? Okay, that was step 1. That was the first action step. You must
All
be
right.
open.
Okay.
I'm already tired from taking so much action on step 1. So let's go to step 2. Take some time to pray. But I'm not saying these are bad things. I'm just saying, in terms of actions. Okay, go to confession. Talk to someone about what you have reflected on. Okay, so going to confession, I will give him credit. That's an actionable thing. You got to go somewhere and do something. But the main thing I wanted to poke at here was that their action list comprised of thinking, praying, journaling, discussing. Like,
Girl shit.
yeah, where am I gonna? Was I supposed to go out there and like help a homeless man, or feed the poor, or like go build a church, or like do something with my hands, like fucking Joseph?
I think that this dude, yeah, he's missing the mark here with his action plan. It's like, hey, why don't you just talk about it and just talk about it? Hey, bro, let's talk. Let's chit chat. Let's go get some chai teas and head down to the. We'll get our yoga mats out. We'll spread it out on the lawn, and we'll just have a nice little powwow. We can all wear our onesie jumpers, and then we can chat about our feelings. Talk about. Yeah, I agree. Like people need to go out and do things. And Joseph was a doer. Be open. Action plan. Be open. Ask God for the grace to be honest with yourself about your life. That's good. That's good. Take time to pray. Okay. So like sort your feelings out. Go to confession. So basically talk about your feelings you did wrong to other people and then talk to someone about what you reflected on. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't mock it quite so much. But it's all about talking. It's all about talking
Yeah,
and feelings and stuff. It's not about changing your life and doing things better.
right.
I don't know. I tried posting the links by the way and I was getting a failed to posting. So I don't know if I'm able to post links in this.
Oh,
That's okay.
uh, yeah.
Anyways, if you guys aren't a member of the DGen Roundtable, go to bit.ly/degenerate underscore roundtable and be a DGen. And you can join the book clubs. And shout out to Zenith for starting that thing. So good stuff. Good stuff, bro.
Heck yeah.
I imagine at some point we're probably going to cover $100 million offers, but Sam and I are both a member of the DGen Roundtable book club thing, and it's quite fun to go through all these book club like stuff and talk about our feelings and talk about our thoughts. As I just previously mocked people talking about things. Here we are. Well, so this is different. I think that we're studying course material and then we're learning about how it works. So
Mhm.
that's my
And then
that's
believe it or
my
not, if there's something from this book that impacts the way I think, I'm going to go apply it to the
yes.
things that I'm doing.
Yes. And
But
that's probably an unspoken portion of this author's little little thing here.
Yes. We got another comment from Agent J. I think it's appropriate to talk about it with confidence,
With a
maybe.
confidant. So
Sometimes oh,
like
confidant,
a
yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes because we are not omniscient. I will caveat that with before you ask for help, give it a college try first.
Yep.
Yes,
Yes, the doing in the book club is actually reading the book. You're 100% right, Zenith.
that's correct. That is correct. I have to say, in my span of don't tell my middle school teachers this, but in high school, in my span of life, I've probably was supposed to read somewhere between 20 to 25 different books, right, for school. I probably read one of them, maybe. The rest of it was just cliff notes and whatever else I could use to get by in school, right? But actually doing book clubs or men of action or things where it's like, oh, I can benefit my life by extracting this information. I've already read 2 to 3 times as many books as I was supposed to. So, you guys gotta read, you gotta do, you gotta learn, you gotta get better. That's what we're here
So,
for.
so closing everything up. Keep talking.
Oh, I'm running out of things to talk about. But
Okay,
hey,
I'm
if
back.
you are
It's all
interested
rained
in
on.
learning about construction or learning about nerd stuff in terms of like science, engineering, and framing and math and application to building and all that kind of stuff, or you just want to join a community of guys that like to build things and see how they can apply knowing about building things to like making more money or other stuff like that, I got a community called Bungalows for Bachelors. You could join the school server with the link in the description, or just check out the YouTube channel. Every Thursday, I do a live stream where I am breaking apart some kind of interesting topic and helping explain in hopefully understandable words what kind of cool things go on in your houses these days. But that's what I got going on. Will, where can people find you? What kind of projects you got going on?
People can find me at linktree/Will Stevenson. That's where pretty much everything is. I need to add my link for the Hex Meetup chat in there. That's the only thing that I have created that is not in the in my link tree. Also, for those of you who and I you know, on the off chance that any of you guys have been trying to visit the Rule Zero archive website, the domain has been down for a long, long time, and I've finally started like fixing it up. I've got the company that was giving me issues with the domain registry and everything. They got the website back online and it's all fixed. My developer is taking very good care of all that. I just had to like sort out some like ID stuff. Anyways, none of that's important. The Rule Zero archive website is back online. For those of you that were trying to check it out and they're like, hey, it says it's giving us like a 403 error or something like that. So, Rule Zero archive is back online. If you guys want to check out any of the Rule Zero podcasts, I essentially spent about a month or two compiling all of the Rule Zero episodes and I put them all into one place. Whereas before you had to hop around like 10 or 15 different, YouTube streams and YouTube channels, and you had to scroll way back in history to find a whole bunch of things. So I just more or less made a hub where all the Rule Zero archive or all the Rule Zero episodes can be found, the Rule Zero podcast. So if you're curious to find it, it's rulezeroarchive.com. Again, all this stuff can be found on my link tree, which is linktree/Will Stevenson. Like this podcast, the DGen Roundtable, the Telegram, our chats, like what I'm doing, my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter, or x.com, whatever. All that stuff can be found there. So that's what I'm doing. Next week, I will be going down to San Marcos to be interviewed by the podcast Proper Thieves. They have not launched yet. They're getting a whole bunch of content pre-recorded for when they finally launch their podcast. So I'm gonna be going down there and doing a pre-recorded interview. I will get you guys. I'll post up in the announcements chat in my Hex meetup, and I'll also post it up in the DGen Roundtable community chat, the link to that video whenever it does go live. But there's some cool dudes. One's a firefighter and one's a like a videographer producer guy, and they basically just interview a whole bunch of different people about different things. I was there when they were interviewing my cool doctor friend, and it was super awesome. But yeah, thanks to all you guys who are in the chat, giving us all this support and interacting with us. Like this, I think it would have been an excellent communication or an excellent show with just Sam and I. But you guys hopping in here and putting your thoughts and your interpretations in has definitely helped to make this conversation like 1,000 times better. So I want to thank you guys all in the chat for both watching and supporting, and for also like participating in the conversation and everything like that. We greatly appreciate it. And I think I can speak for Sam when I say that like the two of us really appreciate you guys doing this and everything. So thanks to you guys. Find me at
Absolutely.
/Will Stevenson. Do we know when our next thing is going to be for this podcast, Mr. Sam, or have we not quite
We
scheduled that?
don't have a date set for it, but it's definitely going to at least be on chapter 2
Oh, okay.
from this book, which is going to be about the 4 B's, overcoming obstacles with St. Augustine, whatever that means.
Okay.
So that's what that next one's going to be about. And I did want to throw in here that I am going to have Zenith on the Samuel Stevenson podcast. I believe it is this Thursday, and I'll have I'll throw a link for that in the description as well once I get the stream built. But if you want to learn about narcotic submarines or like hydrogen engines or like crazy stuff like that, then you should show up because it's going to be a cool conversation.
Ooh, this is good. Let's fucking go. February 8th.
February
Excellent.
8th. There we
I
go.
am excited to see this. Oh, that's going to be that's during the, or no, it's not during the Hex conference, excuse me. That's a month from now. Anyways, cool stuff. Hell yeah. Oh, just, I don't have to talk.
That's so good.
Oh man, that's excellent.
All righty.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you
fantastic.
guys for watching. We look forward to having you on for the next conversation. Peace.
I am not muted. I wonder if this is still on YouTube. That would be hilarious.